in this next 20 minutes, I will just cover this climate change and transport issues. And I've decided to really focus just on India, because we can have a lot of discussion on global things, but eventually, I think it's important what we are doing. So you all are aware of this. I mean, other than a lot of climate things that we keep signing, we have also now signed UN Sustainable Development Goals. And out of 17 goals, at least 6 to 7 are related to transport. And they talk about energy efficiency, which is again related to transport, resilient infrastructure, again related to transport, also affordable, equitable access, etc. It's all related to transport. 11.2 is specifically related to transport, because this talks about access to public transport. And then environmental impacts that we are seeing in our cities, local adverse environmental impacts are also related to transport. So let me spend a few minutes on this. So what is low carbon transport? Because when we talk about climate issues, we are mostly focusing on greenhouse gases and then carbon issues. So a lot of things have been known for a long time. And next 3 slides, what I'm going to show you is from IPCC Assessment Report 5, which was published in 2014, and the next will be published in 2022. But many of the things we have already known for a long time. For example, if we start comparing different modes of transport, so you see at that time also people are talking about electric cars, electric vehicles. But it's if you try to see CO2 equivalent per passenger kilometer, a diesel bus is actually still more efficient than even an electric car. And rail transit is close to it, little higher than diesel bus. And I will explain in next few slides why this could be happening. But we can look at all other fuel and different modes. So we can have lot of very good policies on electric vehicles, and we have been focusing a lot on electric cars and electric bus situation. I will explain you what is happening, but electric car is not as good as diesel bus. Then this is also from AR5 report only, and again you find we are looking at gram CO2 per passenger kilometer. And 2 things, if you see rail and road both, so freight we are not discussing at all, I will just focus on passenger only. So passenger rail, when we are talking about metro and tram, there is a range there, and because for metro it depends a lot on what is the source of energy. So it actually gets related to the issues that you have discussed. If we end up having low carbon energy sources, then metro is beneficial. Otherwise, I will show you a very detailed comparative study that even a compressed natural gas bus is better than metro, which is running on electricity. And then you can see, of course, same thing, coach, bus and rapid transit, it is quite low. And 2 and 3 wheeler, no matter which other mode we compare it, it doesn't compare. So when we talk about low carbon transport, actually there are a lot of aspects to it. It is not just about technology, it's not just about fuel source. It is also how we are organizing our system, what distances we are traveling, and how many people are traveling in different modes. So I won't get into details of this, but this figure is basically explaining this only, that it is about system infrastructure, how people make modal choices, that gets influenced. It is about fuel carbon intensity also, it's about energy intensity also. But activity in terms of what distances people are traveling, how we can combine different trips, our technology is going to have an impact on our activity pattern. This is also going to have an impact on what kind of CO2 we can expect from our transport systems. Okay, so let's see what we have been doing, what national policies and state policies have been in last few years. So not looking into earlier things, but if we look at low carbon transport national policies, I think I can say in last 5 years certainly, or maybe a little earlier, before that also, main emphasis has been public transport and now electric vehicles. And in public transport, mostly now, earlier actually when we had in 2005 National Urban Renewal Mission, and then in 2006 we had National Urban Transport Policy. Following that, we did have lot of emphasis on bus transport. And in 2008, lot of subsidies were given to many cities to improve their bus fleet and buy new buses. But now actually Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, it's called, the earlier version was Ministry of Urban Development, is very clear that our budget is only for metro. They have made it very clear we are not going to invest in any other mode of transport. And so far we have 10 cities that have completed metro systems. It's more than 500 kilometers. This is other than Delhi actually. Delhi alone is 380 kilometers now. And another 15 cities are there where metro systems are under construction, which is nearly 600 kilometers. And in fact, in written policies, this Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has a written policy which says that any city which is more than 3 million population, the cleanest public transport is having is a metro system. And when many of these cities do not have even an organized bus system, but metro systems are being promoted. And usually, obviously, you cannot have a very extensive metro networks, because even if we take an average cost of creating a metro, on an average it's costing about 300 crores per kilometer. Underground systems are nearly 500 to 600 crores depending on where we are constructing, and overground systems range from 180 to about 250 crores per kilometer. So it is very, very capital intensive. So no city is going to have very extensive systems other than Delhi. So, okay, but this is what we are promoting. So the question is, if a bus passenger shifts to metro, does it really reduce overall harmful impacts? But also let us see CO2. What does it have to do on greenhouse gases? So in next 2 slides, I will share with you some results, a very detailed study we did on comparing bus system in Delhi with bus system in metro. And the methodology we used was what is called life cycle assessment methodology, because especially for carbon, to understand CO2 emissions, this is what has been recognized as an internationally acceptable methodology. Because CO2 is not just, the impact of CO2 is not at the place where it is being used, but the complete life, what is called from cradle to grave, how the system is being produced, how it is being used, and eventually how we are disposing of the system, and all different components. So many of you must be familiar with life cycle assessment techniques. So that's what we used to compare this. So I won't get into too many details, but we actually we looked into both aspects of manufacturing a bus, creating an infrastructure, operations, and then how you dispose it off, using the specifications of Delhi bus system, and same thing we did for Delhi Metro. So this one is basically, in this graph we are only, just look at the row which is highlighted in this yellow color. So we are saying greenhouse gas emission, grams CO2 per passenger kilometer, and this is comparing bus versus metro. So the first few columns are for bus, and the next few columns are for metro. So if I just read the third column here, total emissions, so including all different stages of emissions we have put together, if we see greenhouse gas emissions per passenger kilometer is 14.1 for bus system, and it is 24.2 for metro system. And then you can see the breakup during operation, what is happening for bus system, and during operation what is for metro. And so this calculation we've done for peak hour, loads are different, so per passenger kilometer it varies. At peak hour the gap is slightly less, because in peak hour you're carrying more passengers in metro. And so this particular chart is for average values combining peak hour and non-peak hour. And then I think it is very important for us also to understand that after all, uh, climate change issues are global, but local issues are very important to us, which is local pollution and other local adverse impacts on resource consumption. So in this is actually giving comparisons for all different kinds of things which can happen. Possible carcinogens, respiratory organics, respiratory inorganics, climate change issues, radiation, ozone layer, ecotoxicity, etc., etc. So there are a lot of all these different adverse impacts also you can compare. Green bar is for rail transport, and red one is for bus or road transport. So again, I just put that yellow arrow on climate change issues, and you can see that rail transport is much worse than buses, because electricity in India continues to be largely coal based. This is why it is happening. So if we change the source completely to very clean carbon source, then possibly it can change. So from here, actually just from this analysis, we can conclude that electricity used to run metro produces harmful impacts on non-users also, because your harmful impacts are being produced wherever it is being produced, and it's affecting not just metro users, other people also. And metro produces 7.5 times more carcinogens, 1.8 times more greenhouse gases compared to CNG bus in Delhi. And CNG bus in Delhi produces 4.8 times more ozone depletion than metro. So it's not that CNG is all good news. CNG also has some issues, and we have to look into that also. But if we just focus on greenhouse gases, climate change issues, bus anyway is better. So the other major transport, we are saying that climate change friendly transport policy now we have had is on transport electrification. And we came up with National Electric Mobility Mission Plan, and transport is a big sector where a lot of things are being done. And so we have come up with all kinds of incentives to increase demand for electric vehicles. And we have already plans, actually in this 20 mission, they said they were going to, the plans were to invest 13,500 crores, 13,850 crores, and for buses alone would be about 500 to 550 crores just for electric buses. And then following that, we've had this this policy also FAME, faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles. Phase 1 ended last year, and now we are into phase 2. And in phase 1, the government came up with this scheme that 40 buses for 11 identified cities. And then for other cities, they talked about Guwahati and Jammu, 15 cities, there are 15 buses only. These were smaller cities. But already Bangalore went ahead and said they were going to buy 150 buses. And of course, we have a lot of nice policy statements from Delhi government. They said they were going to do 700. I think now finally this year we are seeing few. Now they are saying 1,000. But I think after the bidding process, etc., few have been included now. So the thing is that we do have a lot of interesting policy statements. But what is happening in reality is quite different. And as I showed you earlier, that actually what is happening now, so I haven't put a slide for this, that we have about 63 state transport undertakings in the country. So these are the organizations which are running public transport systems in our cities and in states. And most of them, I would say 90% of them, are in financial losses. And every year they identify the more efficient ones. So awards are given to some STUs which have performed very well in terms of the maintenance of load factor, in terms of doing better fleet management, etc., and coming up with new schemes to serve more people. And TSRTs happens to be one of them, Telangana State Road Transport Corporation. And if you've been reading the newspaper, you will see that for last 60 days now, it's almost nearly 2 months are getting completed. The workers' union there has been major dispute between the government and TRTC workers' union, and actually they're not operating right now at all. I think I read something yesterday that they were trying to come to some compromise and maybe start working again. So the thing is that we do, if we look at our census numbers, a large number of cities actually in terms of public transport obviously are dependent, if I say million plus cities, on public transport, on buses. Delhi, which has 380 kilometers of metro. If we see total trips which are happening in Delhi, 20% are in buses, about 15 to 18% are in cars. Two-wheelers are little more, 35% are walk trips. So overall, with this kind of investment, and we have, if you just calculate the amount of investments, I told you the average cost is 300 crore and for underground is 400 to 500 crores per kilometer. So it is very clear that actually metro system is not, if we want to solve the public transport problem, obviously metro alone cannot do. Metro is attractive for long trips. If you're traveling from here to Gurgaon, it's a very good system. It's a very efficient system. But in any city, majority trips are short trips, including Delhi. 45% trips are shorter than 5 kilometers. So for those short trips, metro is not an attractive system. So if we want to solve, because we've seen earlier that public transport is better than any other modes if we are trying to address climate issues, greenhouse gases. But within that, if we depend only on metro, we are not solving the problem. So, and with, yes, so last two slides I will show. Because few things we have known for a long time. This study that I am showing you, this was published in 2009 when this was Copenhagen COP. That is when it was published first time. And in this study itself, this was a much publicized study published in Lancet. Collaborators were from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and IIT Delhi. And we compared London and Delhi. Very different cities, but it was a scenario analysis. So I will just explain the 4 scenarios which were looked into. Business as usual, 2010 baseline. In 2030, we look at business as usual. And 2030, what is called low carbon scenario, low carbon drive scenario. So here we talk about technologies, electric vehicles, etc. And then we talked about active transport scenario. So we said, what if you are able to invest in active transport, which is basically encouraging walking, bicycling and road-based public transport system, both actually, metro and buses. And then last was combining, which was called sustainable transport scenario, combining technology with active transport scenario. And you just see where the difference happens. Red color is business as usual. So it is saying with respect to the reference case, the increase is more than 500%. Next is technology scenario. So this was, if you, and here the results, I've highlighted results for Delhi. If we just, so here the scenario was, let's include penetration of electric vehicles, buses, cars, wherever electrification is possible. Then from 500 we come down to 400 about. But when we the moment we introduce active transport scenario, which is bicycling and walking and other road-based public transport, you halve it. From 500 you come down to 235% increase. And then you combine technology with that, and obviously it is slightly better than that. I think the main learning is this, that as you said, we are developing, so of course there will be increase, but we have an opportunity to arrest that increase. We can either increase it by 500% or we can go only up to 200%. But what is actually puzzling to me, that this was first studied, after this, if there have been at least 5 other different studies which have published results for many other different cities in India. Similar results. It's not very different. But I mean, in current scenario also, in Delhi, when we are, and all of North India is fighting with this local pollution also, have we really seen discussion on bicycling? I find it amazing that, we can keep talking about other things, but there is no discussion on things which we can do. So I think, oh yeah, there are other benefits. As I said, there are a lot of local benefits that we have to look into. And you can see, because of active transport, all these things have been found, decreases in heart diseases, cerebrovascular disease, road traffic crashes, diabetes, depression, all these things is possible only when we promote active transport, which is combined with climate benefit. So I don't think we are anywhere close to climate responsive transport policy. What on paper we are talking about is actually uh, either construction projects like metro, because even metro we are not making very walkable around areas around that, and then electric is a big question mark right now. Thank you.